We have a dynamic father-son team today who are well known globally as well in Indian real estate industry for their entrepreneurial journey, for the landmark projects that they have delivered, and for their ability to think outside the box and execute when it comes to addressing the need gap in Indian real estate industry. These two have become icons in their own right, and I'm truly honored to have them together on Let's Talk Business 2.0. We welcome Mr. Jitu Virwani and Aditya Virwani.
I actually kind of joined him around 1986. I decided to start a company on my own, of course along with my family members. And that's where the journey started. I was allowed to use the same brand name.
Thanks for having us, Kritika.
Thank you. So Jitu sir, everyone is interested to know, especially our viewers, like Embassy Group commenced in 1993. How that journey has happened for you? How did you stumble upon this real estate sector, and why did you choose this particular sector?
I was born in a family which was in the construction business. So honestly, my father is the one who started, was operating in Bombay, Pune, and moved to Bangalore. So the brand Embassy, the name Embassy, was started by my father and his partner. And I actually kind of joined him around 1986, doing license work for the company. But slowly towards 93, my father and his partner split. So, and I decided to start a company on my own, of course, along with my family members. And that's where the journey started. I was allowed to use the same brand name. And September 93, somewhere, I started on my own, put my own team together, and kind of changed the way my father was working. My father had brought in all these Gujarati contractors from Bombay and doing labor contracts, and I changed around to being built on a turnkey basis and project managed. So that's where exactly our journey started together.
So sir, we have seen earlier during that time, a lot of realtors face problems in terms of scalability, also in terms of expansion. Were there any challenges that you faced in particular? And also I want to know that when the brand was building, at what point of time do you realize this venture of yours has become like a larger phenomenon?
So actually, I must say that my father built a very solid foundation with good reputation. So the brand already had a good name behind it, and I just brought a little bit of my own youth into it, much younger people into the organization, and we designed buildings more differently than my father was designing. And honestly, there were not many challenges because we did quite well. We just had a good product, and like they say, location is key thing in real estate. So we had somehow or the other, I managed to get some properties in good location. Though there was something like out of the box. In September '93, when my first project was actually a commercial project where we still have an office called Embassy Point, and a lot of people said that you can't get an auto there. Who will take commercial space? And my father was building office space in terms of 500 square feet with attached toilet, which is built in Bombay, in Nariman Point, all over the place. And I actually built just 4 offices, 11,264 square feet each, and tried to sell it with a large amount of power in it. Looking at technology companies would be interested in taking much larger space than sticking to 2,000 or 500 square feet spaces. And I was quite lucky. I had Oracle as my first customer, and Oracle actually started from that building, and they ended up taking 2 floors eventually. So that actually kickstart, and then by experiencing Oracle, I realized that a lot of companies who lost out on the space, like companies like Verifone, Wipro, and I realized that they had requirements of much larger space. So the whole idea was to then efficiently put much larger floor plates. And then we looked at this model of 25,000 square feet in Embassy Icon, and that became a success with Hewlett Packard coming in. And then we moved to Golf Links, which was like a 50,000 square feet plate. So it just actually evolved over the time. As a company, Embassy was known to make luxury apartments. So way back it built apartments which were like 3,500 square feet, 4,000 square feet. And there was a lot of success because we brought in marble flooring into the residential space. So I think it was the eye for quality was the main thing to start with, and then always looking at the customer, what the customer wants. And I think that's how we do the business. And Golf Link was the turning point where the whole theory of business parks in India started.
Yeah.
I mean, DLF was building office buildings in Gurgaon in different locations, but not all collectively in one place. So, luckily I partnered with Mr. George, who had just 5 acres of land at that point of time, and convinced him that, instead of being my joint venture partner, he would become a partner, and we sell the building and use the money to buy more land. And that's actually how the whole dream of Golf Link, which was 60 acres today, came about. And that's where the starting point, where people started putting office buildings in one area. And we realized the depth of the demand as far as commercial was concerned. And it just grew. So at that point, 60 acres, we designed a sports club, row houses. I mean, I also never envisaged that the take-up would be so fast. And that was the turning point to change the whole decision in Embassy to build more office space than residential, because it was quick turnaround. We were those days building buildings in 7 months, 8 months, 250,000 square feet each building. And it was like a herd mentality. Once we had, first tenant over there was ANZ, and then Microsoft came in, IBM came in, and it just, Fidelity came in, Goldman Sachs. It just became a destination for office space. And because we had this format of large space, independent building of 250,000, which not many developers were doing.
Yeah.
And also at that point of time, a lot of developers were selling the space. Either they were strata selling to 10, 20 investors in one floor. But somehow we decided that our math said that it was better to retain the space and get into long-term leasing model. And our bank, HDFC, and Mr. Parekh, Chairman of HDFC, really supported us, and we had money available from the bank, and we were getting tenants. As you know, bankers want to know that the money is deployed in the right place, and at that point of time, interest rates were 8%. So for us, it was better suited to rent out. Actually, we were getting per square feet discount your rental. You're getting pretty much 80% of the money from the banks versus what I would sell.
Okay.
So just for 20% short of cash flow, it made more sense to take the debt, and after 7 years the building would be paid off. And but that time also was the point is that debt was a bad word, and taking 200, 300, 400 crore debt in society was not really the apt thing, because developers normally sold and never kept so much debt on their books. So I know that every party I would go to, a lot of people ask me, how do you sleep in the night? You have so much debt. My mother would tell me, people tell me that you have so much debt, and I used to come back to my office and say, because the way we looked at it, the debt was on IBM or Microsoft. It was their ability to pay the rent.
Yeah.
And I think that changed the game. So we went ahead of the game and we retained so much space. And because our costs were low and we were getting more money from the bank, we were able to use the bank's money to buy more land, and then some money that came. And then it was like no looking back, and it became like a way of life. And in fact, we would spend, I've been to the construction site at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. I had my project management company, which was angel funded by us called Synergy. Now it's Colliers. They were engineers who are quite senior now in the company. They were actually sleeping on the carpet in the night. And by the time the guy put the carpet, the workstations would come in, everything would come in together. And in 7 months, 8 months, we were churning out these buildings. So that timing of it, and changing the whole concept of using how projects are managed versus what was done during my dad's time.
Yeah.
Because when I used to sit on my construction site during my dad's time and told those Gujarati contractors that why can't you work here, why can't you do this, and he would say like, kid, you don't know nothing, but I need to do the construction in X manner. And then when I was running the company myself, and I forced contractors to implement it my way, and it changed the whole concept. In fact, I still remember the whole team of Unitech came down from Delhi to find out that what were we doing different than they would do. But actually the concept of the slab opening in 9 to 11 days is that nothing changed.
Yeah.
It's just that we project managed the project together, we started putting electric from down, and we just went way ahead, and then suddenly people realized that the renting game and taking this debt wasn't so bad. And then I think everybody started also looking into the same model. but I think we were just much ahead of the game at that point in time. But so actually, that sacrificed our residential because there's only so much you can do. So
Yeah.
we actually did look at the residential. There was more money here. It was doing well, and I still remember Shobha J.C. Sharma one day told me that you left the residential space, and we got an opportunity to grow in that. But now with our merger on the cards, and we're looking back. So I would like to apologize to some of my colleagues that we're going to actually come back in the residential.
Yeah.
It's like a 50-50 balance. So I think it's time for everybody to watch residential space growth as much as our commercial together.
So how old were you when you joined your father's business?
I was 19, 20. I was studying in Christ College. We actually grew up in Bombay. My father moved here. So college in Bangalore was unlike Bombay, which is like 7 to 12. Here it was like 9:30 to 4 o'clock,
Yeah.
like school timing. And there wasn't much, so I would actually come to the construction site. Not my father didn't really like that idea. But I think pretty much from my first year BCom, I was quite entrenched in the business. And I think I did had the right beginning because my father actually put me on the side, to count consumption of cement bags, make sure that all the slabs are vibrated well, then go to the corporate government office to get the files cleared. So I got a mix of everything, and so that worked actually well in the long run for me to grow the business. And then when Karan and Aditya came in the business, I wanted them to go through the same grind, which was to sit at the side and work under my project management company. And I have to give credit to my lawyer Anup Shah, who actually told me that, he said, you would be an idiot doing all this, and times have changed, so you bring them and make them shadow work with you.
Yeah.
So we experimented on that, and I know a lot of my friends and colleagues are experimenting the same thing. So with Karan, I made him shadow work for 2 years. So pretty much just sitting and listening, not contributing, not allowed to give any comments. They were only allowed to ask questions when we left for home and understand, because in India doing business, especially real estate, is very complex.
Yeah.
There are landowners, there are investors, and there are so many people and sometimes people walk into your cabin and they leave your cabin and it looks to the person sitting next to me that I trust the guy a lot, but actually don't trust the guy. So these are things that are difficult to teach them because they studied abroad and they came back. So that actually paid off well with Karan, and similarly with Aditya. I think that was the best thing that happened to both of them, and I think, like I said, it's all credit goes to Anup Shah.
So Aditya, when you saw Mr. Jitu sir's entrepreneurial journey while growing up especially, what were the key learnings you took upon, like in a larger manner? Of course, sir mentioned that you have shadowed him, but I'm sure while growing up, you must have seen your father's journey. So during that time, what were the key points that you took away?
The main key point I took away and still do take away is the optimism, which is in a way infectious to the rest of the organization, and how he looks at problem solving, how he looks at the business. I mean, we all are very bullish on the macros of the business. We know that office space is going to grow. We know residential is going to grow in a growing country like India, and we want to do things in that space. But approaching each problem, and then in this industry, you don't know how many spanners are thrown at you constantly. But to be able to be calm, to be able to be positive, on the back of your head, and keep tackling them one by one. And maybe, going down the right direction for now, you come back on track, again you go off track, but ultimately you'll get there. And I think that is the biggest learning I would take from him is keep believing in yourself, keep being positive, and if you're positive, then the rest of the team is also going to be in that same attitude.
That's great to know, but you realize that when Sir journey started, it was very unorganized sector, right? And now we are seeing it turning into organized sector. So when you entered in this field, did you see any kind of challenge when you were dealing with Indian real estate market?
Yeah, and I still do. The things that I don't like about even his style of running the business, and he's self-made, he's built this business, so it's obviously proven, but I still think think that there are things that we can tweak and we can better. The business has changed a lot. Those days that Dad just mentioned about how he was doing small offices, strata selling it, H&I investors. Now today the whole landscape is different. You have large institutional investors. I mean, these guys are the biggest landowners in India, coming in $100 million checks. The whole dynamics of how to do a deal is so different. Like, you will very rarely see Embassy do one standalone building going forward. In the office space sector, we are into business parks, and we will bring in a private equity. We have a REIT structure that's very interesting and very unique to what other developers have. So the whole dynamics have changed, and that does change how you approach that. So I think Dad is also seeing some of those things and also learning as time goes by as well. So definitely the things that will continuously keep changing. My kids are going to say the same thing in any interview I do with my kids 20, 30 years down the line.
So are you optimistic about this sector being organized completely, or it's going to take time?
I think it's getting there. I think it's pretty organized.
I think it is. I mean, like I said, to a large extent, when I took over my dad, I organized into a X manner. Now, there's another step which is going. But the best thing is that, at least I can speak for our organization, is that there's, adaptability to change is very quick. And we're very nimble in these things, and we change things around and look at things differently very quickly. And it's all about people, so we've already built a good foundation. So over the time, we just continue to have good people coming into the organization. Some of the other just good people end up at our organization. I don't know how, but we have good people.
Yeah, I'm also seeing a change. Youngsters earlier were very skeptical about entering in real estate business, but now slowly they're understanding this sector is being organized. The sector internal company portfolio itself has a proper hierarchy, proper management. So would you agree that even the young generation is looking upon a career solid in real estate sector?
Yeah, look, it's an exciting industry to be in. It's a bit glamorous as well. So I think and I can speak for some second generations of other developers who are also in my position getting into the business themselves. I think it's exciting, and yeah, you have to credit our team, but also credit the other top developers, because I see similar structures in their companies, similar kind of approaching. Everyone's adapting and changing, and I do think that ultimately there will be a very few 5 to 10 top developers who are doing it right, doing it organized, and who are successful because of that.
So sir mentioned about the shadow work you did. So by what age did you join his business, and what kind of shadow work were you doing?
So I officially joined the business when I was 22. I finished university in San Francisco and came back. But since 14, every time me and Karan would come back, we would do internships in between. So we always knew we would want to get into the business, and we always knew the business somewhat in different departments, mostly the residential. But 22 is really when I joined the business, came in and followed the same path my older brother Karan did, which was shadow working my father for 2 years, which is invaluable. I would do it with my kids. It's something I always recommend to people I meet. And like, again, Dad was saying, is you learn the behind the scenes stuff. So I would go into a meeting with a landowner or a fund banker, and I know what's happening behind the scenes. So I can see how the meeting is going, but just absorbing, not allowed to speak, not allowed to comment, but understanding that why is he saying something like this? Why are we, making it seem that we are going down this way, but we're really not? I think the key, the emphasis of relationship was a big learning for me as well. If you look at Embassy, we've worked with the same architects, we've done business with the same funds, with the same H&I investors, the same project management company. I mean, the same landscaping consultants. It goes down to that level. So I think that was invaluable to just take a step back and watch. It's a bit frustrating at times because 2 years, you want to get your hands dirty and start getting involved. But when you actually come out of that after 2 years, and you then get into the business where you have to make decisions, you have to control, there's still a learning process, but you just are so much more ready for it because of how much you've absorbed from watching and and then you kind of tweak things to your own way. It's not necessary that I have to do exactly how his style is. So you take some good things, you leave some bad things, and you build on yourself.
So Jitu sir is an icon. Every generation knows that. So working right under him as a shadow, did you feel as a leader he was a bit strict with you, or he made sure that you get the right learning and the environment be strict, like everyone around him be also strict with you?
Not at all. You know, I say this a few times, but he's first my best friend, then my father, and then my boss. So we have a unique relationship. I wouldn't compare it to many father and son relationships. So he's strict when he has to be, and when he is, then I know I've really messed up. But the most part, no, it's actually, let me throw him in the deep, let him learn how to swim, let him come to me, or let me pull him up, if I think he, said something that he shouldn't have. Sometimes I have the knack of asking the wrong questions, so he'd come to me, post-meeting and say, you shouldn't have said that, and explain why as well. I think that's important. So not really a strict, boss-like relationship. It's more, mentor, natural friendship that we have, and obviously he is my father by definition, so that respect will always be there. But he's never been, a hard boss. Let me say that for me and for the professional colleagues.
Yeah, so even in our organization, because we have a lot of young people, we encourage a lot of young people working, and the whole, I don't know, by default or by just the style of operating, the company is grown in a way where we like to empower younger people, because we trust our people. So, our whole philosophy is, there's zero trust or 100% trust. So, so we allow them to make mistakes, we allow them to learn from their mistakes. I think we trust everybody on a level. There's no what I call in my own way, like being a watchman behind somebody and watching them. And honestly, I can proudly say that we haven't had any incident like this, which has happened, that we've empowered somebody and somebody's taken advantage of it, or, somebody has done something wrong with the company's finances. Or it's never happened, maybe due to some mistake made by somebody, but otherwise, And we have a lot of young people who have nurtured and grown in the organization. A lot of women who work, they never leave. They get married, some of them actually get married and leave, but they come back again and work. So I think it's just a good culture, and everybody is allowed to speak their mind and work freely. So I don't think anybody comes to work in embassy thinking that, it's another horrible day to go.
True. So why I'm asking about this, because every company has a different culture. What we have been hearing, especially from youngsters, when it comes to real estate companies, the two-way of communication, like the knowledge sharing, is quite limited. So what would you define how embassy culture is?
I think if I had to define it in two words, it would be empowerment and integrity. I think and not saying it's a bad thing, but Dad's way and style of leadership has not been very hands-on micromanaging. It's really pushed a lot of young people who might not on paper be qualified for the job, but pushing them into the job. That buys so much loyalty. Our whole senior management has been there since inception, pretty much. So I think empowerment is a big one, letting them build teams, listening to people who are closer to the business. Our residential head, we will never know the market as well as she does. She sees so much of it, so it's her job. So listening to her, trusting her on how to sell, how to build, what kind of products to build, empowerment, and I think integrity. I think if you look at our roster at Embassy, it's not A-star Harvard grad roster. It's not a bunch of really intellectual people, but very honest people, very easy to deal with, and that kind of brings down to the stem of the organization. And that has, I think, been a key part of our success, is just being good people to work with and communicating and building good teams.
So Jitu sir, in your overall portfolio, the residential segment seems very limited. Why is that so? Like in future, are we going to see any different strategy when it comes to residential segment? Because after COVID, we have seen residential segment has got a new lease of life.
So one of the reasons, like I mentioned earlier, is that because of our growth trajectory in the commercial was so fast and so much, and demand was inbuilt with the tenants. Even today, I think there used to be a time we had like 63% repeat tenants, and now it's like something like 80% repeat tenants. Commercial buildings being very capital intensive, so you don't see money because you're building, you're renting, and the rents go to the bank. So in terms of asset value, the company is getting wealthier, but you don't see much of cash. So it wasn't worth to take the risk at that point of time to do more residential and then borrow money from banks, because this was the commercial, what I always say, was a calculated math. Like I mentioned earlier, when people say you had debt, and then I was just come back and look at everything, it was like virtually, the way I would look at that, I had zero debt, because the buildings are all rented. We were not building speculative too much, and so the eye on the residential always there, because that's the original foundation of this company, and the passion of building residential. And right now we are just the last leg of handing over. They completed most of them, but selling Boulevard, Lake Terraces, and Embassy Grove, and Four Seasons. And strangely, we are at a spot where these are 4 different products. And our opinion is that once they are completed and completely people start moving in, enjoying these properties, it may be very difficult to look at any other company in terms of quality of the product. So we have a really good stamp now going ahead in the commercial side, in the residential sector. And I think once our merger happens, the India Booth also has a huge residential play, and what we see in our pie becomes like a 50% commercial, 50% residential. So, and we believe that the future is there in residential, though commercial is growing in Bangalore along with it. But now at least we have access to cheaper capital and deeper pockets, and then so we would go ahead and do a residential play now. So maybe if we have this another interview in 5 years, you'll ask me, why are you building so much residential? It could be that way. And like the beauty also is that these companies have land banks. So as a company, we don't need capital to buy land, but we need just capital to build. And outbeat cost of construction to be cash flow positive. And like you mentioned earlier also, that most developers are shrinking, and actually the difference between the boys, men and the boys, is coming out now. And ideally, I believe also that 5 to 6 developers will pretty much rule the country and will pan India. So, and quality and timely delivery and reputation will always pay in the long run.
Of course.
So you will see a lot of residential coming. We're actually quite bullish on the residential sector.
So when you quoted that 5-6 developers will come together later in the India real estate sector, in the recent interview, Piroj Shah Godrej had mentioned, and I quote him, that India, the leading developers will end up being the national developers, and only the top 4-5 developers will compete with each other across the country. So what's your take on that?
So I completely agree with him. This will happen, and it's not very far away. I think you will see the whole 5-6 of them settling down in the next 2 years.
Okay.
And of course, I'm very bullish that majority of this 5-6 will be from the south, from Bangalore. Because I think that this whole business is run very professionally from Bangalore developers.
Yeah.
And one of our colleagues, they run it very similar to our fashion. Though they're family-owned companies, but they run everything very professionally. So I think this is good. And that's what people are seeing all over India, that how Bangalore developers operate, and that kind of is taking, I think people are adapting in Bombay. So there are a lot of big developers in Bombay, but they're only in Bombay.
True.
And there are developers in Gurgaon, they're only in Gurgaon. But I think it's the Bangalore developers who venture out and try to be pan-India and just stick to the principles of doing business. So banks are comfortable with South developers, and I think that there maybe 6-7 maximum will be there now.
True. So Aditya, Embassy Group had a very different kind of journey when we see other real estate players in this market. So commercial portfolio of Embassy Group has been a very large differentiator. So what is the Embassy Group as a brand doing it differently? Because you are catching a lot of global players' eyeballs in terms of partnering with you and engaging with you.
Yeah, I think our clear focus on the commercial side is build large-scale office parks, creating these total business ecosystems, and not building those standalone one-off buildings. I think that is a key difference. And because we've been able to do that, because we've been able to build a sizable portfolio, strong balance sheet, we've been able to do a REIT. We've been able to deliver for the largest private equity fund in the world, Blackstone.
Yeah.
And we've been able to give them good returns, which is then alerting investors all across the world, their LPs, and attracting their investors or the global investors interested in real estate, interested in India, to look at us and partner with us on the development side as well. So I think that is the key part of what we're doing different, is building these large-scale office parks, putting it into a structure that's institutional, that's liquid for different sources of capital, so we can attract investors into our REIT, we can attract investors who want a little bit more risk return on the development side. And I don't see a structure like that out there. Of course, you have Rahejas who have a REIT as well, who are a developer, but I don't think there are many developers who are even close to having a sizable portfolio that they can REIT and have a strong dev core that is well liquid and well capitalized to raise equity to then execute even more assets to contribute into a REIT. So to me, that is the simple difference of why Embassy Office has been such a big success.
So also now at the stage where we've done everything. So when we go to somebody, you don't have to say that I'm going to do these things. We've already done, delivered, demonstrated. Most of these companies and most of the CEOs and professionals move around these companies. They've had their experience. I think accessibility to right till the top, till at my level, is still there. When Aditya is now negotiating with tenants, but a lot of them want to see me. We have some calls, weekly calls, who just want me to be on the call, very senior people from the opposite side. But actually Aditya is doing all the talking, actually I'm just hanging around there because for face value, but the fact for them that I'm available and they can pick up the phone and talk to Aditya or anything, it's there. I think it's strange in India itself, but a lot of companies don't like dealing with professionals in real estate companies. They somehow either want to make sure that what the owner commits is there. Okay. Professional committing is still not taken so much at value, and it's very unfortunate, but that kind of thing continues in real estate companies in India. And again, because maybe there's so many family-owned companies, like as far as prestige is concerned, there's Irfan Razak is there, Siddharth Puriya is there, Jai Shankar is there in Brigade, Niranjan Hiranand is there, available. So there are lots of examples, and they feel comfortable doing that. Coming back to your question is that it's just that we deal with customers as clients. There are a lot of old school real estate people who want to charge for every small thing, any changes gets made, but we look at customer in a very different format. So when you want to try to do a joint venture with the landowner, we actually find it very difficult because we need to have a landowner who actually adapts to our way of thinking, because they sometimes need to block space for expansion from a customer where the space is ready. We're not going to get any revenue for 6 months, 12 months. Or it's committed for 6 months, but then the company decides to want to extend for another 3 months to keep it vacant. And we just go ahead with that. But a lot of people say, no, look, I need the rent, otherwise I'm not giving you the deal. And this typically happens mostly in Bombay and Delhi and other places, but I think most Bangalore developers are used to dealing with technology companies, and I think that's quite a bit of thing. And of course, the REIT became a big plus point because though we manage the REIT, but a lot of companies think that now their lease is getting institutionalized and they've got an institution which is their landlord, so they'll be much better off. I think it's more that, and they also see professionally managed. We have a company called Embassy Services, which is property managers, which is quick and service-wise. So I think there's a whole lot of things which is built over the years. We've improved ourselves to put it together, and it works.
Yeah, but just to add to what Dad said is, I think as our portfolio keeps growing as well, it even gets even more of an advantage for us to capitalize on this office opportunity even more, because if we have a tenant like Wells Fargo in Chennai, we also have them in Bombay, we also have them in Bangalore. We know where they want to grow, we're in constant touch with them, and we know exactly what their growth plans look like. I mean, they don't exactly know what their growth plans look like today, but I think we have a good feel. They bounce ideas off us. If they want to do a campus in one part of the city, they're asking us, hey, do you have something some opportunity available? So that is the key thing is, and then the REIT is it's a bulletproof vehicle. It's very lowly levered. We can spend in a lot of capex, refurbishing buildings, spending on infrastructure. We spend 180 crores ourselves on a flyover at Embassy Manita, skywalks, hotels. Like a lot of different things that the average developer.
Hotel was a big example. I mean, it's not our business, but we started putting hotels in our larger parks.
Yeah.
Which is actually doesn't make as much money as the office building would. But it attracts and it takes our office rents higher because of the convenience of people having accessibility to the hotels.
Of course.
And you wouldn't have the average commercial developer being able to do these kind of things. So when you have the stickiness and 85% approximately is renewed tenants in our portfolio, it's you just got to keep executing and keep building on this, and the macros again on India are so good that it's continuing to be the outsource market for the IT sector. So growth is phenomenal. The talent that they have here is amazing. So I think that, and then if we can keep executing good quality assets, adding to that, it just it makes life really easy.
True. So coming to REIT, as you guys mentioned about it, Embassy Office Park was the first one that brought REIT in India, and we are seeing market being opening up to REIT investment. But we are also noticing the fractional buying, companies like Strata, they are attracting more retail investors as compared to REIT being an alternate asset class. So, what do you think where the challenge is lying, or am I reading it all wrong?
I think it's lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
Completely lack of knowledge. In my opinion, if somebody were to ask me that why I'm buying this fractional sale, I mean, I can sit and prove to the gentleman or whoever is buying it that they would rather take it in the REIT and de-risk themselves than go to somebody where one building, two buildings are there. You spread in the REIT, you spread your risk all over the country, a large, huge portfolio. The REIT keeps on buying, filling in portfolio. When we started our REIT, it was like 33 million, with 20% under construction, and now it's 43 million. We're putting in some more assets now, so it'll be close to like 50 million soon. But the quality of assets of our REIT, is way above what is there in the market right now, and we have and Bangalore being actually the most safest and best market for office space. So I don't know how much you know that one third of office space which gets rented in India gets rented in one city, Bangalore.
Yeah.
When we did our REIT, there was a slide presentation which actually quite surprised us that Bangalore was growing as much as 12 other cities in the world. And in those 12 cities, there are cities like Beijing, Shanghai, Singapore, London, Seoul, all of these cities on one side and Bangalore's growth on one side. And then one third of that business comes out of Bangalore. And our REIT has about, 60% Bangalore?
Yeah.
65% Bangalore portfolio. So it's a thing, buying fractional from somebody else and risking that, because probably maybe today if the REIT is giving a dividend of 6.5%, in that fractional they're getting 7%. But this is 6.5%. Tax free, it's insulated. Once the occupancy moves up, the return will move up. I would know.
Yeah, it's what Dad said is lack of knowledge, education of the REIT market and marketing. We as a REIT can't go out there and do false marketing, which is what we're seeing with these fractional ownership guys. We can't commit to a 19% IRR, hoping that cap rate compression will happen. We can just give you what the yield is on the price today and what your total return will be. It's liquid, you have diversification across the country, good quality assets. I think just being liquid is the biggest advantage. It's not very easy to sell an asset, so I think it's just a matter of time. And by the way, I've invested personally in a fractional company because I think it's a hype. I think it's a hype that's going to last, 5 to 7 years, somewhere there. But people will go through a cycle, realize I'm not making 19% and I would have made more in a REIT. And as more REITs come out and our capital markets, the retail investors who are investing in the public markets get more experience, I think that transition will definitely happen. It's just about time, but I personally will ride that wave and I think my investment.
So look at the REIT was launched in 2019.
Yeah.
2021 went through COVID. So actually it went through 66% of its time through COVID.
Yeah.
But yet after 3 years, the REIT gave a return of 51%. in 3 years. Not taking the investment what people made and the quarter-on-quarter dividend they got.
True.
So Sensex made 51%.
Yeah.
And if it's been through that challenging years and now things are coming back, that speaks for itself. I think maybe it's our failure at not educating people more about the REIT. And I think we need to go down the path and push and do a lot of things more and trying to educate people that it's much better to be here. I mean, we get a lot of people who say, I want to invest 1 crore, 2 crores, and I want to buy some rental space. Now, what will you get? You buy a rental space, you will give to a chartered accountant on rent or somebody like that. And why does for that 1 crore buy a fraction of the REIT? And I think the Embassy REIT is traded also quite highly every day on the stock market. Yeah. And though of course, I think it has a really good scope of growth in terms of return.
True.
Because we have what, 86% occupancy now?
We are 88, 89% occupancy.
Yeah. So as that moves to closer to 95, 96, which was there.
And that's the lowest we've ever been, since inception.
Yeah.
So that I not trying to over promote our REIT, but I think there's a lot of potential. I think REITs globally, if you look at it, are trading under NAV, and I think you can understand why so in the West, where you have so much vacancy and you're not seeing that much traction on demand. I think India is so different. I'm personally talking to so many clients who want space and know that they're going to need space, also because of the cost pressures happening in the West. So I think Indian REITs, us as well as the other two, are a good investment opportunity. It's liquid, diversification, good quality assets. I mean, I just can't understand how people are not investing in REITs and investing in these strata projects.
So to create this awareness about REIT, could you tell us the difference between REIT and the fractional buying? What retail investors should keep in mind or be aware and conscious about both of these?
Yeah, the big one is the ability to be liquid. So if I buy 1 crore worth of Embassy REIT, I can sell it tomorrow, I can sell it 1 year later, no problem. If I buy 1 crore worth of a fractional ownership, I can only sell it when someone else is coming to buy it or when the asset is being sold.
Raising money on it is not so easy. You can raise money on your REIT units much easier.
That too.
Risk is the main thing. This becomes, and I think sometimes people like a fraction because they like the location and they want a part of this building. But they're blinded by not seeing that if something goes wrong, I'm like a small portion in this building. So I'd rather be a portion in a huge thing which is run professionally and managed professionally versus somebody just running it.
And the benefit you get of that is the mark to market, which is really what improves your total return. So if I'm just buying one asset where there's a tenant, it's rented, that is only growing contractually by 5% year on year or 15% every 3 years. But if I have a piece of various different assets in Noida, in Bangalore, in Pune, in Chennai, then I know there's some assets like say Embassy Manyata where the lease is at like $60, but today we're leasing at 120. So it's a literally double jump. So you get the benefits of that mark to market, you get the diversification. If this building is empty all of a sudden, if I was a fractional ownership, I'm screwed. But I still get that diversification benefit. So the tax side of it is far more tax efficient when you again look at total return. It's just that we can't false market, and I think the regulation should actually get into it and look at what these strata fractional guys are doing, and because it's false advertisements that will eventually come to realization from retail investors at some point.
And here you buy one building, so if it's 400,000 square feet building, it's not going to become 440.
Yeah.
But when you buy a REIT and you buy 45 million, 50 million, it becomes 70 million. I mean, there are instances where in the REIT we're also looking at buildings which were rented earlier, and since we have enough cash flow and everything, to actually demolish some of the old buildings and make new buildings because it makes huge number sense now today, and and keep upgrading each building to today's standards. So if you look at golf links, there are buildings built 20 years back, 18 years back, but when you walk in today, it looks new because we at every time have refurbished the buildings, put the aluka bond, glass, change lifts. So for what we built 15 years back and today the same, because today the rent is 160 rupees. We started golfing at 26 rupees. So and mark to market, I think our REIT is close to like 35% below market.
No, I agree. There's a quite lack of knowledge there. But when it comes to raising, like recently, Strata has raised for South Indian market for warehousing in terms of fractional buying. So how come these companies are able to raise money when it comes to this particular sector? You think it's always got to do that people, I understand whoever is investing, do have a lack of knowledge about REIT, but how come they are able to raise money from the market?
So there is a market there. I'll be honest, there definitely is a market. There are assets that are not REITable. They're not, like we would not look at it, and the other two REITs in the market shouldn't look at those assets too. So there is an opportunity for that, even selling just floors within, already strata-owned buildings. So there is an opportunity, but my point is from the retail investor is you're looking at one asset that is not really a great, or it's not really an embassy manyata where you can really see price appreciation. So yeah, you can try, you can feel good that hey, I own a fraction of that building while I drive by it, but from a total return point of view, it's not going to make you as much as the REIT. So there is a market there, but I think, look at what we've raised from the REIT. So you can't really compare what these strata guys are doing and what we've done.
Yeah.
There's a market for everything.
Well, things will change when people invest in these things and go down 2 years down the path and realize what are the problems.
True.
Yeah.
So that will come later. Like they mentioned that if it's a 500,000 building and let's say it's leased to one company, and that's signed for 15 years. So 15 years, you're locked, your return is locked. And at 5% or whatever inflation happens. But in the REIT, because you have these mix of different cities where old leases are getting over, new rents are coming up, it's acquiring more assets by its strength of money, borrowing, working on an arbitrage. So it makes money, contributes to the dividend further and further.
And hey, by the way, I'm an investor, a small investor, but an investor in one of those companies. And I think it's going to do well because it's it's going to be a 5-7 year realization until I feel it won't do that well since going forward. So I think that it's an interesting time. I think they're spending a lot of money on marketing, on technology, making it easy for people to understand. I think it's interesting actually as a REIT point of view, maybe we should do that as well, try to increase our retail portfolio. But I think we've more than tripled our retail portfolio just in this last 1 year. So people are understanding the REIT as well, and I think that will keep snowballing.
I think the market is still new. People are still experimenting and understanding what's going on. And I think, of course, as you said, in a few years, people will realize which is the long-term investment which will create a good return to that particular investment.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's give it 5 years, and so much changes in 5 years. But give it 5 years and kind of relook at the space, and it'll be interesting to see how much have those guys done, how much money have they raised, and then the REIT market as well. How successful has that been? I would put my money on the REIT market.
Yeah, because if they do another project and raise money, the owner of the first building doesn't have equity in the second one.
True, that's it.
Yeah.
But in the REIT, he has also keeps on carrying forward.
Yeah. So Aditya, I want to know the overall, ECG initiative from you guys. What has been going on in that particular initiative?
Yeah, ESG has been a big focus for us, especially the last 2-3 years, and we have 19 different pillars that we focus on. And you know what? We actually do a pretty good job before even getting into it because of the fact that we have a 100 megawatt solar park that is catering to our portfolio. We're very confident by 2025 we will be 75% of carbon emissions. And hopefully by 30, 100% or close to 100%. So we're actually doing a pretty good job because energy is a big part of it. But what we've done to enhance that is, further than the 100 megawatts, we've also got all our buildings, our rooftop solar, that's added another 20 odd megawatts into our portfolio. We're focusing a lot on waste management and water conservation. I think that's a big part of the focus for us, and we've partnered up with a very special NGO called Ecogram, run by a very special German lady called Miriam, who runs it. And we've done things in panchayats where we go into the panchayat, we go to the level of educating them of how waste segregation is beneficial teaching people, incentivizing women, and incentivizing the women population as well to go out there, collect waste from families, from households. We cater now to 4,000 households, and we set up now our own waste management plan. So we set up a dry waste management plan, and the phase 2 is going to be the wet waste, and actually get all of that waste in there, recycle it, and so we stop the whole landfill problems that we have. We've done things with lake rejuvenations. Bangalore, we've had problems with flooding, and it's all because of reasons of water channels not flowing into the right places. And since we have big developments, we can play our part. I think we can play one part of the jigsaw, but everyone needs to play their part together. And we've done things of working with the authorities on how the Nala should stream, how lakes can be rejuvenated as a whole. We've had an excess number of STP water in Bangalore, but advising the authorities as well, how can we channel that into these dry lakes, that Bangalore is known about. So a lot going on with the ESG. That's a push from us, even green leases that we have with our tenants, controlling the amount of water that comes through the toilets, having specialized filters. There's so much going on there, and I think that's pretty exciting because we keep pushing each other. Investors push us, we push our tenants, they push us. So it's quite exciting, and we got to do more and more to get there. But we're actually not bad today.
Yeah, actually, we started all these initiatives much before the emphasis on ESG started coming in. I think we were already there doing all this, but more out of improving our developments and improving the surroundings around us. And now it's, we've also had good people like, as I mentioned, Mariam was there. So there are, all these things require passion and some dedication is there. The solar park was a great idea when we started, and now we've just snowballed into it because now a lot of developers are grappling and trying to set up a solar park. So it's some of these things sometimes like, thinking out of the box and doing things differently, but actually it has a math to do. Again, everything gets connected back to our business everything.
Of course. But as a bigger brand, you have taken a great initiatives in that. But people from village are being adaptive with these initiatives?
Extremely, you'll be surprised.
Yeah,
I mean, we were just chatting, they are even better than some of the wealthy communities that we are all aware of. So you'll be surprised, and of course you do need to incentivize them a little bit to start that initiative, to make sure that they are segregating waste. I think that was a big challenge, educating them but also incentivizing them in a way. But once you create a habit and you understand how it's benefiting and you actually think about it, then it becomes natural. So that's what we're seeing. We try to cater to villages that are close to our parks and then try to spread the word through that. I think, we're only doing so little, although we feel, it's still, there's 4,000 households, it's quite a lot. So the ability to do more and, have that transition into further parts of other villages is phenomenal, and I think it's happening. I think we have to pat ourselves on the back because it is definitely moving there, and we should be proud of that.
Definitely, the first step at least you guys have taken, because I have heard, why I asked that, because maximum developers complain that villagers are not adaptive about it, or they're not open to such initiatives. You have to educate them a lot. But it's good to know you guys have invested into this particular initiatives and you're going to come up with more initiatives.
Yeah, often it's the developer who's actually screwing the village in a way, because they've come build these ginormous concrete jungles, blocked nalas, diverted things, and the poor village guys are getting screwed. They haven't really changed the landscape of their village, So it's actually the other way, I think, where the village, the village folks are actually more receptive to change and things that are affecting environment than the developer community.
And we've done actually, in a way, we've not done so little, but the impact has been so huge. So then when you look around, actually not many people are making the attempt to do it. It's an attempt, we in our CSR also we started doing government schools, and now we started with 1 school, 2 schools, and then it's just grown, ballooned into it. Now we have our tenants investing into it. And then again, these schools are, because since we do everything around our parks, these schools have become channels for us to educate their parents, to do things. So it's like everything is some way like a connected, thing. I think And maybe, you know, like, we never know, like, if we were able to increase our solar power consumption, you know, we'll be able to then balloon all these things around all these parks. And because as a company, we find it easiest to do around our parks, we also get to involve our tenants to do things around the parks because they contribute. So I think and we have a really good team which does that. So I think slowly but surely it's just growing on its own.
So the recent Bangalore floods, do you think it has hampered in any way real estate? Of course, the construction which were going, it has delayed it a bit. But do you think it has hampered a bit of real estate market?
I think it's made the buyer aware to see what they're buying and whether it's something like that. Like because Bangalore used to have a lot of lakes and there are a lot of valleys which are being blocked. So all of that now people are becoming aware. Otherwise, people have looked at the price. I mean, I don't want to name because we lost a lot of customers in a certain development of ours for like 2,000 rupees a square foot, and you know people bought, and I was to be very surprised because our development is in a very good location. So let's say land cost there is 20,000, the other place the land cost is only 6,000, but and the price is only different, only 2,000, and then finally boom came this rain.
Yeah,
it all built in the valleys,
yeah.
So it became flooding. But we didn't have that instant. But I think so. It'll be good. And also some developers who probably by mistake have done it, or the architects has overlooked it, will now be more careful and keep these things in mind.
And hopefully even push the government officials to not allow these changes. You know, we've always been very compliant, and touch wood, you know, these last floods, no embassy property was very largely affected, very minimal kind of.
Yeah, we had
in
embassy Manyata a little bit, but that again is a lake, Rajana Lake, where the government is actually building a barrier which was only 70% complete. So okay, of course, a breach of a lake overflow, you can't do nothing. I mean, you can't fight the power of water, but what actually we can do is that at least where all the water flows, those systems are done. I mean, where we are sitting and doing the interview, we have a school stone hill over there ahead, and all the water the land slopes down, but we have all the hume pipes underneath, which all the water goes to the lake, and you know we have a collection pit at the down also here.
Okay.
So you plan that earlier, you know.
Yeah.
In fact, we had some floods in this location also because we realized that the water flow was huge and the pipe was a little smaller, so we had once changed the pipe again, and then now it works properly. You know?
I think the most viral video was the luxury villas being completely submerged. And it also showed upon like how maximum builders have encroached upon the forest areas, which also
that development particularly, I mean, you know, I can say is that honestly, when it was raining, regular rain, that development wasn't flooding. I mean, but if there's a lake breach,
yeah, of course,
then you know there's nothing you can do. You only can make sure that you don't buy, you know, a house near the lake.
So that's good. Now buyers will be more attentive in the next.
But yeah, so these 1 or 2 incidents like this of breaching of the lake, you can't do. I mean, there was a point during that time somebody said the Sankey Lake might breach, which is near Palazzo, which is heart of town. But you know, it's rained. I think statistically they mentioned in August, normally it rains 200 centimeters. It rained 1,200 centimeters.
Okay.
So that's also a lot of.
Of course.
Yeah. So when New Orleans get flooded, not many people complain. You know?
True.
But yeah, I think the government, and I think the government is woken up and taking initiatives, demolishing buildings, homes. So a lot of these areas there where illegal construction happens, so that gets done on these nalas, and people buy apartments because it's cheap. I think so it's a good thing that the buyers will be aware, the developers will be careful, you know, the government will be more particular about it. But yeah, it's a little hard way of learning.
But the regulations needs to be stricter, don't you? Like,
Yeah, I think we have to push the government to not have people divert stuff and give them plan approval if they're building illegal, you know, on a nala. I think that's crazy. Lakes are overflowing because of not necessarily your own development, but someone else is violating things. You know, lake shouldn't overflow; it should get into another nala and into the next lake. So it's a concern. The planning, we got to push the government to do a better job.
True. Also, why I'm asking regulation should be more stricter, because recent demolishment of Supertech Twin Towers, you would have noticed, there have been a mixed debate about it from the real estate point of view and from the audience point of view, where they are saying when the building was started only, that point itself it should have been stopped, not waited for the whole building to be, completed and then you're demolishing, because it's a waste of money, it's a waste of an asset. So what is your point on that?
Of course, whatever I say, because my view will be as a developer, but I'm actually not talking as a developer, just talking as a common man with some common sense. That rightfully, why was the first it went up? It's not like 1 story, 2 story, 3 story.
Yeah.
The tower went up so high.
True.
If the developer had an approved plan, somebody approved it. Somebody allowed the building to go up construction so high. And the reason I read, I don't know how far it's true, that the distance between the 2 buildings was not enough, but I could see that the developer had put a bridge and connected it.
Bridge, and they even said the fire regulations they didn't.
So it's
follow.
normal that the distance between 2 buildings has to be half the height of the building. Is common everywhere.
Yeah.
But if it's anyway 2 towers are there's nothing wrong with it also. And fire regulation. But the fact is that so much of national waste is built. It's not demolishing it. I'm sure the government could have done something different from it,
The bidding of
Like
that building could
bidding
have
of the
been done.
building, using that for money for some other purposes,
True.
rather than just trying to teach somebody a lesson
No, I agree.
and demolish this was
Yeah.
I think it's crazy. So first it's the government which allowed to be built.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't go and build in his kingdom where nobody can enter. So the government saw it coming up. So a lot of responsibility the government is there. So the court can't just actually put the responsibility on the developer itself. So let's say developer is wrong, he's done something wrong, but what about the government doing? And they could have just taken it, paid some fine, or taken the money, auctioned that, used it money for some, doing something good for society,
Yeah.
something rather than just bringing it crashing down like that.
No, I agree with you completely.
And now they say he's going to build something else again on it.
Jitu sir, I want to know, like historically we have seen and even we have read about that in the past real estate developers who have tried to move out of their territory to go to different cities, they have either failed or have struggled. But suddenly we are seeing a different trajectory or even the momentum of, they are leaving their regular territory and moving to invest in Tier 1 cities. So why do you think there's a sudden change in this scenario?
So I agree with you. I mean, I also used to say this that, so when Unitech came to do in Bangalore, they failed. DLF moved out and came to some other cities, they failed. But then in Gurgaon, they do really well. And everybody has their own territory and they do well because, like I said, owners buy one to make sure the owner is there. And it's not run professionally. But I think now with, all of a sudden, because there have been so many projects which are managed badly, and there's now become a reputation of a developer, people started looking at it more professionally. That I don't have to look at Mr. A, he owns the company, but look at the company, what kind of work it does. So, Godrej is a classic example.
Yeah.
They're not also historically, family background is not real estate, but they know that Godrej is delivering time and again, and it's run. So, I think owners, they don't mind buying from such places, and I think it's just the outlook has changed where it wasn't that old school thing that. So there was a time in my office, to come out of my cabin if we launched a project, I would ask the secretary that is there any customer outside? Because I had so many old customers. If I came out and bumped into one, we would lose like 5-10 lakhs on an apartment. Because even if my people negotiated, they would see me and say, "Oh, I'm such an old customer. I know Jitu when he was small," and blah blah blah. So it cost me like 10 lakhs to come out of my cabin. So that culture is totally gone. So there was a time, as far as even I can speak for Embassy, it was Embassy was Jitu Virwani was Embassy. But now as time has gone by, Embassy has become a brand, and it sells on its own. I don't meet any customers, people know. However, my sales team still complains that I get a lot of people who say, no, I'm a good friend of Jitu's, but it's going away, slowly at that point. So now suddenly people have started looking at brands. So I think it's the whole culture in the country has changed how to look at real estate because there are more, I would say, educated people who are buying and more, white collar people who are buying versus my father's time. The most people who were investing into real estate was somebody who made tax to riches story, running a textile, but investment has to be real estate. 90% of the money has to be in real estate. But now you have people, buying stocks, investing in gold. They're kind of, they have a mixed portfolio of of investments, and mostly it's usage than earlier. I mean, very rarely now somebody comes and says, I'll buy 20 flats from you as an investment and then sell, which was happening in olden days.
Yeah.
I'll buy a tower from you or something like that, but that is gone. Now, maximum you get a person to buy 2 apartments because he has 2 kids or something like that.
So
I think
would we see?
that has changed. So, Shobha has been successful.
Yeah.
Prestige has been successful. I think to some extent, even Salar Priya to some extent has been successful in being in different locations. So that's changing.
Now we are seeing even Prestige has moved from Bangalore to expand in Delhi. They are even entering the Bombay market. So would we see Embassy Group as a brand moving from Bangalore to other cities as well to expand?
So as I mentioned earlier, once we complete our merger, this India Board, which also has assets in other locations. So we have infrastructure people already in those markets, because licensing in each state, everywhere is a little differently built. The way it's sold also, like in Bombay, the super built up area concept is different. In Bangalore is different, Hyderabad is different, Delhi is different. So I think you need to, but also somebody who's Bangalore centric, when we go to a new place like that, needs to be a little careful. Also needs to, I always say that when you go to another place, you must have a little money to burn, because you can't take the same amount of debt like you're doing in Bangalore, financials and building it. You need to put in a lot of your own money to see the product come out, prove yourself a little bit, and then once the sales start, and then it's a thing, which goes on again and again. But and now, of course, COVID changed this whole concept of Zoom and everything. People are now used to just dealing with people in different cities, and of course you will find embassy as far as all the cities where we have commercial requirements. So you would see Hyderabad, NCR, Bombay, and Chennai, all of these places. You will find us there in terms of residential shortly.
True, and even after COVID, we have seen that buyers want to buy from the branded developers now.
Yeah.
And if they are entering, for example, even if Embassy enters in Bombay market or Delhi market residential segment, I'm sure buyers will be ready to invest, because what they have learned during the COVID is, because a lot of people face problems when they did not got the OC, or when they did not get the possession of the flat. So they realize it's better to associate with the branded developers.
It's true. I mean, because they know that ultimately, even if a project goes wrong, there's chance of getting their money back. Somebody they can answer, because the person is worried about his reputation.
True.
But if you're a one-off developer, he's not worried about. And then the poor guy is really stuck. He's not going to, beg, borrow, sell everything and put in the money to do something. But while a branded name may not do well in a Pune project, but is doing well in Bombay, Bangalore, so he can sustain to hang on to the Pune project, complete it even if the sales are low, and give occupancy and all these things there. So it's just, I think it's very important, and what is happening in the country is moving in the right direction, and I think that will also make real estate more streamlined and disciplined.
So I also want to know from you, especially, that you have seen Bombay market, like maximum land are taken by slums, and then the developer takes and give it to SR and build a proper rehabilitation project around it. So do you agree branded developers also should involve in redevelopment projects? Because right now very few, like Godrej definitely tried, but a lot of branded developers are shying away from such redevelopment.
So I think we would also shy away. It's too much risk.
Yeah.
And then you need a maverick person to actually clean it up, build it for the slum developers, and then whoever is developed to developer maybe come to table on that case. Because the laws are such that tomorrow slum doesn't vacate, something comes, some problem happens, and you can't build your buildings, and you've got already money invested, you bought from banks, interest rates go up. Of course, some people start saying that 20,000 rupees flat has become 50,000, so making money, but nothing happens, and the 50,000 again becomes 20,000. Yeah. And you borrowed money at high interest. A lot of people got into trouble because of that. But it looked like less investment and more profit. All that glitters is never golden.
But don't you think the entry of the branded developers can happen when all people have agreed upon, like selling off their flat, and then the developers can come into the picture? Like, I'm trying to understand, it can be possible, right? Like where you can.
But the government regulation is still not so strong to disciplinarily get it executed.
Yeah.
You know, the whole government machinery over there is like it's a danger line, and then you're already you're on fire. Now you need the government guys help to save you also.
True.
And then you get into a big mess. So I think that there is still opportunity to do things in a disciplined manner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of opportunity. I mean, I would think as a company, I would rather redevelop. If there's an apartment with 40 people staying, and they want to demolish that building and put it up, or actually staying in those apartments, versus doing the slum SRA projects, is because some of these people, even the slum guys, they get the apartment, they want to sell it to somebody else, and they are also as sharp as they. So they start pre-selling.
Yeah.
They say, oh, I've signed up with this developer, he's going to build and I'm going to get so much square feet. I'm forward selling it and taking your money.
True.
I mean, I grew up in Bombay, I've seen this
I'm sure, yeah.
Jodhpur problems,
Yeah.
So, I think it's dangerous. I mean, so we would stay away from something like that.
Aditya, currently which 3 proptech companies that you are admiring, or you would, the 3 sectors, but I would prefer if you could give us 3 proptech companies which you feel are doing good in this Indian real estate industry.
Yeah, so I'll break it up in proptech, the 3 different spaces, and I'll touch on a few companies as well. But I think proptech is the most nascent tech, and then if you look at India, we're even a few steps behind because no one is really doing too much in proptech. We're seeing a few things now, and then in India, it's even further behind. The 3 kind of buckets that I think are interesting is one, construction tech. We were the first ones to actually partner up with a prefab company called KEF, who was eventually bought by Kitera. We did the first office building with them. We had a ton of problems, and at the time we started with 3 buildings, a conventional, a steel, and a prefab. And the benefits of doing prefab is timing, right? It's supposed to finish earlier and your revenue is supposed to start faster, but it's also more expensive. We actually found that a prefab building finished last, and that's because the company had teething issues, but we worked with them and waterproofing issues eventually, but we worked together and resolved it. But it could have done better, but it just showed that we are thinking that this is the future. In prefab, you're using a lot of cement, which is local. The costs are pretty controlled. You can build faster. You can start designing your building while approval stages happen, which is, in India, approvals can be unpredictable, and the demand for tenants is so fast. So that's definitely one space that I think can be really big in India. It just needs a well-run company, and unfortunately, Kitera wasn't able to do that. Not just in India, I think the India operation was pretty good, but their global issues that they had. So I would watch out for anyone coming back into this space at a large scale. And we're working with another company now called Teamage, a prefab company, small, but I think as we can grow, hopefully they can grow with them. And we would love to actually do something with a similar company that complements our business. So that's construction tech. I think that's evolving in the West, and these 3D buildings or villas and printing. I think you will see that here in India, but eventually. The second space I would say is quite interesting is the building management software, digitalizing the building. I think being able to monitor and also evaluate your data points on HVAC consumption, your chiller, general lighting. You don't really have to have your HVAC operational spaces that are not being used. Monitor how your spaces are being used. I think that from a tenant point of view, but also from a building owner point of view, is pretty. I think it's pretty key for us to reduce costs. Back to the ESG aspect as well. Reduce emissions, but also track your building, use data points to better learn, better design your building as well. I think that's a space that's pretty interesting, and there are a few companies that Flamenco is one that we've done a pilot with. A small company, not doing too much, but something that I do think has potential. There's also Switch, Demnola pretty well. She just entered India. She's doing a lot for Google and some of the big MNCs globally. So that's a space as well that's pretty interesting. And then the last bucket, although we have different views on them, I would say it's the online buying, selling, searching for property / investing space. And we spoke about these fractional ownership guys that would come in that bucket, but also square yards, making it easier to buy an apartment, to rent an apartment, that whole online platform, digitalizing that whole broker, old school, going to a realtor, he shows me a few properties to buy or rent. I think that's an interesting space that is developing in India and globally. So I think that is one place where it's probably the most investment going in when you look at proptech, but really it's an ancillary of proptech, right? If you think about it. So yeah, we're working with a bunch of these companies. They're doing good business for us, and we're complementing them. And we're also seeing ways of how can we be strategic to some of these companies, how can we invest in them and help them grow through our portfolio and leverage. So it's pretty exciting. I think PropTech is going to see a lot of success in India next 5-10 years.
So if you want to, if you have to name a pain point that you're facing in technology currently for the Indian real estate industry, where the budding entrepreneurs, when they're watching this, can also come up with that kind of solution, where would you think is the need gap in technology right now?
I think it's the 2 points I touched upon, which is buying and selling. How can we make it easier for us to generate leads as a developer? Targeted leads, right? Specialized leads, reduce our old school marketing costs of putting a newspaper front page and hoardings, and I think that's relevant, but a lot is moving digital. A lot of data analytics that happens behind the scenes that I want to go to one agency who can really focus who is the right buyer for Embassy Lake Terraces, understand what that client is, what that ticket size is, going to the level of what job they do, what community they're from, where do they live in the city, where do they work, those kind of data points, and then going to them, and I don't mind paying them to generate those leads for me. So I think that could be really special, and people are doing it. I just think it could be accelerated. And the building management software, I think reducing your OPEX, managing your building with less manpower, labor is such an issue right now. I think those kind of elements where we're working with a very interesting company called Stafu, which does surveillance AI. So they can really look at if there's a fire, if there's a breach of someone jumping in compound wall, if there's an accident, if there's a fight, if someone's not wearing a mask, to the levels of identity, people coming into the park, so security reasons for our tenants. Our tenants are doing some really security, some really secure stuff in their building. So as a building owner, you have to help them. So that whole OPEX part of it is another interesting thing where I think developers can use to help.
Good you mentioned about lead generation, because currently what I'm seeing is lead generation is seeing a constant decline, especially from developers. They're looking and they're investing and they're collaborating with agencies, but when it comes to lead generation, they're not getting a good lead as per se.
Yeah.
So what do you think the challenge is? Because there are a lot of companies which are providing you with lead generation.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest shocks when I joined the business. Is I would sit with the sales team and they'd be like, yeah, conversion is like 2%. And they'd be like, that's good. And I was like, wow, 2% of all our leads are being converted, and that's good. So it's really throwing a large fishing net, and there's hardly any fish out there. So I think improving that efficiency of hot leads, what we call internally, of relevant leads, is really key. And I think that goes back to data points, not just doing a mass advertisement. I think there's an old school thumb rule of spending 4% on marketing costs. I don't believe in that. I don't think you have to spend 4% and budget that in your underwriting. I think you just need to be clever with your marketing, targeted, understand your product, work with someone who can help you find that the right clientele, and then hopefully that lead conversion number picks up going forward. So that would be a cool metric to actually see how far we move from the old school broker holding newspaper way to a little bit new school of hot lead conversion.
But are we not very much dependent on Google, like Google Facebook for the lead? Like, do you think that's the only way to get to the hot leads?
It's a great way because you're right. Everyone Googles. You know, if I just anything you don't know or you see something, you just pick up your phone and literally Google it. Well, it might not be relevant, right? I mean, that's a very broad level kind of lead gen. I think you can drill down and Google even helps you do that. You know, so I think that's developing as they collect more data, but that will be relevant. I think that's part of that digital bucket of lead generation. So they will be a big part of it. You know, that their biggest revenue is ads basically. So I think it will be a big part.
So I've seen brokers are now, that went, the time has gone by where the brokers were looked upon in a different manner. But today, brokers are very adaptive to technology. They are very adaptive when it comes to how to generate lead generation. So what do you see how this will, become a bigger network, or brokers will become a very important role in developers, sales marketing plan?
So I always honestly thought that brokers are always they play a big role in a developer's success, whether it's commercial space or residential space. It's now also they are like becoming more tech savvy, and the area of finding clients is much more different than earlier. Was more relationship build, friendliness and stuff like that. And like Aditya mentioned, there's so many tools for technology which are just adapting and moving ahead. Things will change, but
it's moving at a very slow pace.
Yeah.
It isn't moving as fast as I think at least I would like it to move up, but I think we're working. Within our company also, I think Aditya has been working at it quite.
Few companies have come in when it comes to brokers.
So it will come, it will happen.